This video is going to be my first preview of the Lions taking on the Washington Commanders in the NFC divisional round on Saturday night. Detroit's going to face another extremely mobile quarterback in the rookie Jayden Daniels, albeit a different threat, obviously, than Josh Allen, who came into Detroit and helped the Bills get a win late in the regular season. Daniels is, in my opinion, part of a very different type of offense, one that, first and foremost, has in some ways a little bit of a misleading run game that I think the Lions have a great opportunity to slow down, if not shut down completely. The Ravens and Lions have very similarly capable rush defenses. And back in week 7, Baltimore held the Commanders to just 52 yards rushing. Jayden Daniels is a key here. And I think most or all option concept looks should be such that the Lions DNs or outside linebackers either immediately force a give read to Jayden Daniels, putting the ball in the running back's hands, if you will, or try to half man it, surf it, as some people call it. Be able to fold down late after Jayden Daniels gives the ball, essentially muddy or gray the read for him, whether he should give it or keep it. And then once he gives it, once confirming that he does so, fold down, try to chase it down from behind, be part of that backside pursuit. The Commanders run a lot of the same option concepts that the Ravens do. I will show you some film in this preview. It's been extremely difficult early in the week here to try to find time. I'm a one-man army when it comes to downloading the plays, trying to label them, and then organize them. And I have to do all of those things in order to try to present you anything. So I will be honest with you. Some of the film, the majority of the film you're going to see here, in fact, is from earlier in the Commanders season, focusing on their offense. Because fortunately for me, they came to Baltimore and played the Ravens. I believe it was actually in week 6. And so I have film organized or categorized from that. In terms of their film from their 6-game win streak, I'm still organizing that as it stands Tuesday night. So I think their choice of backup quarterback tells you a lot about the system that they intended to run. And so what I mean by that, Marcus Mariota is their backup quarterback. That indicates that what their base system is, what their fallback plan would be in the event that Jayden Daniels was to be out with injury for a while or not be able to play in a particular game. Now, some of what they do will be based on formation. Generally a spread, I call them slow huddle team, at least leading up to the game against the Ravens. I really don't see a tremendously physical offensive line. I really reject using the word finesse. But for Detroit, I think they have a great opportunity to try to hold this team to 120, 125 rushing if you can keep Jayden Daniels down. If you can contain him, keep him in the pocket, not let him scramble out on some third downs. And I think Aaron Glenn has a great plan, obviously, to do that. Now, he may open the Lions' defense up to other things. I understand that Washington's rush game finished third in the NFL. I believe 150 per game. But those numbers, first of all, are drastically different in the last 5 games of the regular season. So let me explain. And again, we will have some film here, but the large majority of this is going to be commentary because I don't feel comfortable or I don't feel like I'm capable of allowing film to be put out here that I haven't categorized and organized in a manner such that I can give you as complete a look as possible. So in essence, the first preview here is essentially going to be commentary with some old film from earlier in the season. Last week in their win against the Bucs, Tampa Bay was able to hold Washington to 82 yards on the ground. And over the last 5 games, all of which are close wins, by the way, Washington has averaged 132 rushing yards per game. That would still put them top 10. However, that's boosted by 216 rushing yards against the Falcons in an overtime win. By the way, that Atlanta defense gave up 30 to the Commanders, followed by 44 to the Panthers in Week 18. Prior to those last 2 games of the season, they had allowed 42 to the Vikings and 38 to the Broncos, all since mid-November. My point is, Atlanta's defense is not very good right now, and Washington's rushing output in the last 5 weeks, I think, is kind of skewed by rolling up in Atlanta for 216 yards. Now, regardless of who the Lions put out on the field on defense, they will be very good at stopping the run. The typical run, I should say. Option game is the swing spot here that Washington would like to use in their favor. The Lions' defensive ends and outside linebackers used to run down the line of scrimmage to take away the dive, essentially force the quarterback to keep it. And I felt like last year, 2023, that was revealed to be an inferior strategy at times. When you're dealing with quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, even Josh Allen, those guys can stack up 50, 60 rushing yards on you quick and push the team total from what could have been 110 or 120 to 150 or 160 quick. And that's where I think the rush yards for Washington looks a little bit inflated when you compare it with the last 5 games of the season. Also, check this stat out if you're a Washington fan, number one, or if you're a Lions fan who isn't aware of this. The Lions have allowed less than 100 total rushing yards in 7 of their last 9 games. Now, one of those games was against the Bills. The Bills did get to 197 on the ground in their win in Detroit in Week 15. So I have more on that later. Was that an anomaly? Well, first of all, James Cook had 105. Josh Allen added 68. That's the part that I think the Lions have to break away from, meaning they can't allow Jayden Daniels to get 68. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 would be acceptable as long as it doesn't occur consistently on 3rd and 2s. And I'll give you a little bit of film here on some of the things they're going to do to run the ball with Jayden Daniels, give him options to give it or keep it. If either the running backs get shut down and Jayden Daniels is possibly given a little bit of space, or they try to half-man it, the edge defenders, the outside linebackers, and close down the backside late, but they force Daniels to make a read. In other words, don't give him a clear, clean look at it, make it muddy on as many option concepts as possible. Now, there's another layer to it, RPO concepts. That adds an aspect to it when you play man. I intend to help you guys understand some of what I mean with this video here when I get to the film here in a moment. And then another one that I'll try to put out Wednesday night. Look, the Commanders have a ton of weapons, right? Terry McLaurin, he's leading the way, got 82 catches in the regular season, 13 touchdowns. But also, his 82 catches have come on a 70% catch percentage. You know, when I watched the McLaurin film from earlier in the year before their game in Baltimore, and then the last 3 weeks film that I've got, he's very efficient, very dangerous, not force-fed like other top receivers around the league. From a selfish perspective, it would have been a great matchup between him and Carlton Davis III if he had not been injured a month ago. CD3 just provides a very different level of physicality and challenging every yard, every foot, in fact, on a football field for a receiver. But Amik Robertson and Terrion Arnold are playing very well also. Arnold played extremely well against the Vikings in Week 18, and Amik Robertson, what he did with Justin Jefferson, pretty much goes unsaid. Jayden Daniels. Let's get to him. 69% completion percentage. So not only does Terry McLaurin have a high percent conversion rate, so do the other guys. I think one of the Lions' challenges is not just to contain him, but to shut down or limit the effectiveness of Washington's running backs in the pass game. Whether it's Austin Eckler, whether it's Robinson, and they've received Alex Anzalone back, and he's a great coverage guy. If you're not familiar, if you're a Washington fan watching this or listening, this will not resemble the Bills game at all. From a run, look, in that game, if you don't know, the Bills running backs had 8 catches for 156 yards and 1 touchdown, and they only needed 8 targets to do so. Anzalone is a great coverage linebacker, especially to the boundary where running backs generally attack. I think the way the Commanders play offensively is actually very different from so many others. They're a spread team, in my opinion. So you don't see as much of that play action with the tight end or running back tight end or receivers crossing the field and the running back slipping out into the flats late. You don't see as much of that. The Lions have really struggled with those tight end over-under concepts. But getting back to Washington's running back output, they've got 65 catches in 2024 in the regular season on 79 targets. Now that catch total, 65, it's only, I think, a little less than 13% of Daniels' total completions, and that may not seem like much. I think Detroit's got to shut down the running backs in the run game and the running back contribution in the pass game as well, meaning the screens, the play actions with the late throws out into the flats to the running backs, particularly to the boundary, and Alex Anzalone is a big part of that. I think the boundary side D-end, boundary side outside linebackers got to play a huge role in some of those with recognition and then getting out there to the flats. Essentially, if you look at 65 completions over the course of 17 games, you're talking about a little bit less than 4 completions per game to the running backs if I did my math right, because 17 times 4 will be 68. You can't allow anything like the 8-catch, 156-yard explosion from Ty Johnson, Cook, and the Bills running backs in Week 15. The Commanders running backs have an 82% catch rate. That's a very similar number to what the Bills came with in Week 15. And in my opinion, yes, McLaurin is a big weapon. Jayden Daniels in the option game, huge. Zach Ertz having a great season, almost a renaissance, if you will. And there's other guys who are a factor, one of which I'll talk about on third downs here in a moment. But I think the running backs have got to be shut down, whether it's the run game or the pass game to those guys in the flats. Let's get to a little bit of film. Forgive me if that was too long of a lead-in for you. I understand that, especially Lions fans who watch my content often, you're used to seeing a lot more film than I've shown in the first 10 minutes. But again, I don't have everything categorized for the last 3 weeks, so I don't feel comfortable trying to present it in a comprehensive manner. First, let's get to this. Jayden Daniels is really good at scrambling. I mean, you knew that already as a Lions fan. I don't mean to scare you, but whether it's a 4-man rush or a 5-man rush like Week 1 here on the 2nd and 8, he's capable of getting out of there if your edge defenders don't maintain integrity to the outside. There may have to be an adjustment when you're, and what I mean by that is, and we've actually taught this before, but to no one anywhere near this level, sometimes you don't want to sack the guy. And that's a difficult thing for NFL fans to hear. Sometimes the athlete you're dealing with is just so much better than you that it's in your best interest to pressure him, but not try to sack him, unless you're blitzing to do so. Another scramble, this is Week 2 against the Giants. On a 3rd and 10, you can see it's a 4-man rush. And look, the Giants have 2 great pass rushers, Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. And here, Jayden Daniels is able to get out of there. It's just another element that he brings. I don't think Aaron Glenn is a quarterback spy guy. I mean, he's got the athletes to do it. Jack Campbell is a stud athlete at 6'5", 230 pounds, but that's not a guy. Aaron Glenn doesn't strike me as a scramble guy. He strikes me as a guy, okay, I'm going to bring pressure, I'm going to make you throw it. And that's been some teams' answer. I'm familiar with that mentality. That's been some teams' answer against Lamar Jackson at times before he got a more comprehensive offensive attack installed there by Todd Monken in 2023 and 2024 this season. So the last one that's a scramble here, zone could help. This is a cover 3. Week 3 against the Bengals, it's a 1st and 10. And you can see that the Bengals are in a cover 3 alignment, 4 under, 3 deep alignment. Can still allow Daniels an opportunity to get out of here if you have defensive ends pushing too far upfield, or in this case, folding too far inside. I think Sam Hubbard's, he's had a fantastic career for the Bengals, but I think his athleticism at this point is a little bit limited out there. Can't really adjust at all. Not that he's going to tackle Jayden Daniels, but you can see you've got a flat player carrying the running back up the right side, vacates that space. Jayden Daniels runs right onto it. Scrambles, defending the scrambles is going to be a big factor, whether it's man or zone. I do wonder if Aaron Glenn at times is going to err on the side of playing a little bit more zone than we saw against the Minnesota Vikings in Week 18. Let's go to some option stuff. You probably are familiar with this concept that this is straight out of the Ravens playbook. It's a dual read from Week 2 against the Giants. Forgive me that the film is a little bit grainy. So when I say dual read, I mean the quarterback and the tight end / H-back, in this case Zach Ertz, are reading the same defensive end. They've got the same trained or ingrained responses. So if that DN was to run upfield, let's say he did that, which is not sound, then it'd be a give to the running back, number 1. And number 2, the tight end / H-back would loop underneath off the wall here of his teammates' blocks, and he would go block normally the front side inside linebacker, sometimes the front side safety. That's not what occurs here, but let's look at the other option. These are 2 drastically different or distinctly different reactions. Let's say the defensive end outside linebacker violently runs down the line of scrimmage, then the tight end H-back is going to loop around. Guess what? He's going to go get the front side inside linebacker or the front side safety, and of course it's not going to be a give read by Jayden Daniels. He's going to loop around following the block of the H-back tight end, hence the name or the phrase dual read. It's not called dual read. People have different names for it. I'm old, so the names that I utilize are somewhat from a different time period. It's a great concept. We'll give you the end zone angle. This one is the same play. Now, this one is not grainy at all. This is a Greg Roman concept from the Ravens. I'm not saying that's where Washington got it, but I will say this. There's enough of Ravens option concepts in here with Jayden Daniels to make me believe that they had to take a look at some of these things. So the beauty of the dual read is it gets you a lead blocker, whether you give the ball or whether you keep it. So Daniels and Ertz are both reading the outside linebacker, DN, in this case Thibodeau. And because he steps down with the running back, you can see Ertz gets out in front. Additional blocker for an athlete like Jayden Daniels. It is almost like playing 12 on 11 because the H-back / tight end on the board, on the whiteboard, the way you draw the play up, he's in two places. It's not that the quarterback is in two places. It's not that the running back is. It's that H-back is reading the same thing, hence the name or phrase dual read. It's a badass concept, borderline unstoppable at times. Another version of the option, if you're not familiar with the terms, I'm throwing a lot at you, so forgive me for that. I've been around some really great option people. I am not one, okay? But I've been around some really great option people in my life and heard them talk about it. So some of these phrases I know just enough of to probably be dangerous. This is another read against a defensive end, outside linebacker, but it's an arc release. So tight end is not set over here and screaming across the line, reading the defensive end. It's not a dual read. He's lined up here now on the same side as the running back. This is one of the most badass formations there is with an athletic quarterback. Trips closed A. And an option read to the backside really causes problems. Trips closed, meaning a tight end on the line. A, the running back tight end on the same side. This is a 3-by-1 formation. 3 to the top side, 1 to the bottom. But when you have an athletic quarterback like this, it's not that it becomes a 3-by-2. It damn near becomes a 3-by-3. Because you can get these guys away from the trips quickly because of the athleticism of the quarterback. If you got a running back who's willing to block, that's not what happens here. But what I'm telling you is there is significant danger to this tight end side when the running back is over there and you have a quarterback like a Jayden Daniels, a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, anything like that. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can see how easy this is. Not a dual read, like I explained a moment ago. It is a read on the backside, generally into the boundary. And they've got Von Bell, a safety, and CTB, Cam Taylor-Britt, a corner, backside, and that's it. This is early enough in the season. Why do they do this? It's 11 personnel, and so what it does is it controls the look by the defense. You're going to get an A-gap defender here. You're going to get a B-gap or a 3 technique there. You're going to get at least a 6 technique, if not a 9 technique, outside shade of the tight end there. So it controls the look for the offensive line. You get the arc release by the tight end. You can see he's going off screen here. And you will not see Jayden Daniels because not only are the Bengals fooled, so is the cameraman. It's a badass play, and I'm trying to prep you as a Lions fan or a Commanders fan watching the game live. If you see trips to one side, tight end closed, running back on the same side, especially in short yardage, look for that play concept. It's a great option concept, if you ask me, that causes defenses a ton of horizontal conflict. I guess there'll be a little bit more film than I maybe led on in the beginning, so forgive me that there's no Lions film here. Another option play, this is a 3rd and 1 against the Bengals. This actually looks like an RPO. I don't have the all 22 of this one. And yeah, it's a great juke by Jayden Daniels. This goes along with the concept of what I was talking about earlier, that sometimes when you're facing an athlete this special as a quarterback, you as an edge defender, even an NFL edge defender, premier predator of a human being / athlete, you want to not try to sack the guy. You want to pressure him. It all depends on what Aaron Glenn's mentality is. I think when the ball's on the hash and you've got running back, tight end into the boundary, you better have a plan for stopping option into the boundary where they read your defensive end because they're willing to run it a lot. Finally, a really cool adjustment and also something that shows you the Bengals were onto this by the 4th quarter. It's a 4th and 1. It's an important 4th and 1. Washington was never stopped in this game. They never punted. And they're hip to what's getting ready to happen. Von Bell has checked into the boundary. They know what's getting ready to occur. They're trying to trick or manipulate Jayden Daniels. The read man should be this defensive end. That should be the read man, but he's lined up head up. They walk the OLB up, and he screams off the edge at Jayden Daniels in the mesh point. Well, it's pretty easy when you're a well-trained option quarterback. You just read the next man out, and I will give you the end zone angle so you can see it. Additional to that, Noah Brown, really underrated football player, wide receiver down here to the boundary. Don't even know necessarily what his status is lately in the season in terms of his production. He's a guy that was always underrated as a blocker. If you ask me, with the Cowboys, they brought him over. Like I said, they were not stopped in this game once. Should be reading this defensive end. Believe it's Sam Hubbard. But the Bengals, like I said, they're aware of what's getting ready to occur. They walk Pratt up. He now becomes the read man. Easy. Jayden Daniels, just read him. And it's a little bit tighter because Von Bell, who's assigned to the quarterback in this look, in this adjustment, the Bengals is not only being pinned down by Noah Brown, you can see him coming to the screen right here, but also the tight end coming across is sandwiching him, and it's a big conversion. Like I said, a well-trained option quarterback's just going to read the next man out. You got to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. Let's move on a little bit to a couple of passing concepts. Look, there's a lot out there on Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz. Fine. I'm going to tell you about a guy that, leading up to the Ravens game earlier in the season, I saw as a threat, especially on third downs. They like to utilize him on pass concepts into the boundary. Now, this actually ends up being short against the Browns. The Browns are playing Tampa 2, which is a little bit of an anomaly in and of itself for Jim Schwartz. Zacchaeus, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. They like to line him up into the boundary and then utilize him as the third guy into the boundary. So basically, have the actual running back stay into block, but Zacchaeus be used as the third receiver into the boundary. Whether it's one receiver, a tight end, and then Zacchaeus, again, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name. The idea is he gets over to the boundary away from the nickel defender in third down situations. They're almost kind of taking advantage of the way teams play their nickel defense. Now, the one good thing, the benefit for the Lions is they play a lot of man. And they're not going to get fooled by stuff like that. But there is a play that I want to give you a heads up on here in a moment. It's not that we're only throwing to Zacchaeus on third down. Okay, this is a third and long. Great throw. Again, it's kind of grainy footage. My apologies for that. Great throw to Zach Ertz on a 3rd and 4, where the Giants are jumping into kind of a pseudo zone coverage look that becomes man on a match principle. It's a great throw to outside leverage. I mean, Jayden Daniels can make all the throws. Ertz had a great year for them. Back to Zacchaeus for a moment. They love to move him around and attack into the boundary, like I said, on third down. That's a 3rd and 4, week 4. Motion him down, and this is straight out of the Rams playbook. So what I mean by that is like Cooper Kupp into the boundary, away from your nickel defender, kind of protecting him, if you will, and then pick, rub, or shield concepts, which is exactly what you get here. Too easy because they're playing man. So from that standpoint, there may need to be some adjustment on third down when Zacchaeus and another receiver are lined up into the boundary like you see here. Just trying to give you a heads up on some of the concepts that I remember encountering, the patterns, I should say, that I remember encountering and seeing leading up to that game, that visit to Baltimore earlier in the year. 2 more. Zacchaeus is going to be in the backfield once again, 3rd and 4. You see he motions out, this time to the field. And I actually thought he was short on this completion. It's a great tackle by Budda Baker to the field. I would call it a China out route. Some people call it a whip route. 3rd and 4, thought he was short. Refs ruled that he got it. Point is, Jayden Daniels looks for him on third downs often. My suspicion is that sometimes that comes when Terry McLaurin's either being, quote, doubled, bracketed, or Jayden Daniels feels like from a matchup standpoint, he just doesn't want to go there. I will say this. With Kirby Joseph, the way he's playing football in 2024, there are quarterbacks who are not going to want to go at him. So I'm interested to find out or see how Jayden Daniels reacts to having an absolute badass free safety back there who can certainly change the game with one step, with one hedge in one direction. We saw, I think, 2 situations in Week 18 where Sam Darnold was maybe dissuaded from throwing a particular route because of the presence of Kirby Joseph. Finally, be aware of this play, a man key breaker here, if you will. So Zacchaeus is set to the field with a running back into the backfield. It's a 3rd and 5. Game's already over against Arizona earlier in the season. They're up 35-14. He's crossing behind Jayden Daniels, again, into the boundary. Now, they're vacating. So the tight end is vacating, and you're getting a vertical by Noah Brown. So he's not really becoming the 3rd receiver into the boundary because one of those receivers, the tight end, is certainly vacating that side of the field. But conceptually, hopefully you can understand why I'm saying they like to get him to be the 3rd receiver into the boundary. Force you to match up, whether it's man or zone. And the thing that I would look for when Zacchaeus is set to the field in a joker's configuration, I call jokers when you have the quarterback, 2 running backs in the backfield, in the shotgun, is something like this, like a shield concept with these guys, trying to shield anyone who might be playing man on the running back, well, on Zacchaeus, who's lined up in the backfield, and then run him out in the flats on a concept just like this. I'll have a little bit more film to put out Wednesday. It's a very multiple offense. I would say I referred to it earlier as spread, slow huddle. One of the things, and let me explain what I mean when I say slow huddle. One of the things I noticed coming into their game against the Ravens was their speed of actually snapping the ball, meaning they would line up quick. Daniels would get the formation, look at the defense. There would still be time left on the play clock. And Daniels clearly would get some type of check from Kingsbury. I guess it would be in the helmet comms. And then possibly switch the play or run it, depending on the look they got. Now, that's not a slight towards Jayden Daniels. He's a rookie. But it just seemed quite obvious to me that that's one of the things they were doing. Essentially to allow Kingsbury, an experienced offensive coordinator, and his staff to hold the chalk last and then help Daniels recognize when, where, or if he should adjust the play. Now, I can't prove it. And again, it's not a slight. It's just something I watched on film prior to them visiting Baltimore. And look, credit to the Commanders coaching staff for being up at the line quick enough, training them to get up at the line quick enough in a manner that they can take advantage of the comm system as I understand it. You're welcome to let me know if I've misinterpreted the QB comm system. And what I mean by that is if it's turned off once the team lines up. But to my knowledge, it turns off at 14 seconds remaining. On that note, something I'm going to digress about, and unrelated to the playoff game, is I've seen increasing people call on social media for coach comms in the quarterback headset in high school, which is where I have my experience level. I just think it'd be a waste of time and resources for a lot of coaching staffs. If you don't know, a lot of high school coaching staffs are limited by the administration, by the school district, from a salary standpoint, to 5 or 6 coaches, meaning for the entire varsity and JV program. Now, the schools that I was blessed enough to coach at, 16, 17, sometimes 20 coaches. So you had people assigned to every single little detail, including the technology piece. But a lot of schools don't get that. I think that the bigger schools would be able to take advantage of that resource, and the smaller or even medium-sized schools would not, let alone setting it up before the game and testing it. What about fixing it during the game? With all the issues and failures, difficulties that we have in public school for now, and I'm a former public school teacher, 20 years, by the way, worrying about having quarterback comms for one kid per school, the quarterback, to me seems like an absolute waste of time. I know there's some places that currently allow it now and utilize it. It's schools with great resources. Forgive me for digressing. Anyway, beyond just the run game and the option or RPOs and the pass rush, getting Daniels off his spot without allowing scrambles is going to be a delicate balance. And here's why. I think Washington and any high-level offense is going to be able to organically generate a certain number of first downs every game because of their talent level, their scheme, their coaching staff. Let's say that number is 12. Let's say it's 12 or 14, somewhere in that range. If you look at Washington's offense, their stats, their data throughout the year, they've consistently been at, or above, I should say, 20 first downs every week. Now, check this out. In their 6-game win streak, they're averaging 24 first downs per game, essentially possessing the ball a lot or often. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, the Lions defense, they've been very good about not allowing a ton of first downs. Now, the Bills game and the Seahawks game are complete anomalies, obviously. I think the Lions strategy, being a heavy man team and bringing a lot of pressure, is a complete, comprehensive approach that lines up with their offense. Meaning, if you call a DPI on us, the clock stops running. If it's an incomplete pass, the clock stops running. I think to some degree, the Lions almost want to lengthen the game, generally. And at least in terms of this matchup here, Washington may want to shorten the game. Why? Because Detroit's offense is so good. I think that strategy of playing a lot of offense is designed to get the ball back, or playing a lot of man, against the offense is designed by Aaron Glenn to force clock stoppages more often, not let teams run the ball. If you go back to all the way back to week 9 against the Packers on the road, let's start there. Detroit allows 20 first downs. Houston the next week, that second down shutdown on the road, 16 first downs. The rematch with Green Bay, 17 first downs. 28 first downs allowed to the Bills. 29 allowed in the road win over the 49ers. And then week 18 against the Vikings, only allowed 14 first downs. So you're looking at an average of 21 first downs allowed in those last 6 games. I don't think Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn care about yards allowed. I think they care about first downs. They want to get the ball back to the offense. Keep in mind as well, those 21 first downs allowed are against, in the games that I just talked about, 5 playoff teams and the 49ers. Great offensive system, great offensive mind and implementation. That game was on the road, I think, the day before New Year's Eve. My point is that number, 20 first downs, might be a marker for the Commanders to get to. If they don't get to 20 first downs and we get a typical production from Jared Goff and the Lions on offense, it sets up a great situation for Detroit to get a win. I don't do score predictions. I damn sure don't do them on Tuesday night. This feels, for me, still a little too early to do a preview because I don't have the film study aspect of it all under control. I definitely want to focus on their screens because it sets up their yards after catch, lets them punish blitzers, which is going to be an interesting dynamic to mix with Aaron Glenn, how much pressure he brings. And I think almost dissuades you from blitzing sometimes. It really also contributes to the high catch percentage, if you ask me, by Zach Ertz, the tight ends, and the running backs. Think of it this way. Zach Ertz has 66 catches on 91 targets, 7 touchdowns. For comparison's sake, Sam Laporta has 60 catches on 83 targets with 7 touchdowns. Both of those guys are at 72% conversion rate on targets. Sounds similar. It's really not. The difference is Ertz only averages just under 10 yards per catch. Laporta's at 12.1. He's a huge matchup for the Commanders' defense. We're only focusing on the Commanders' offense here for this preview, but the screens, number one, they're multiple. They get the offensive linemen out in space to attack the DBs. And I think what they're conceptually trying to do is create as many 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 situations as possible. The screens allow them to generate yards safely without utilizing Daniels in just a shit ton of option concepts. They have those installed. Daniels executes them extremely well. I presented you with the film there earlier in the season, so I think you will accept that. They're very good at attacking horizontally and also offering what I would call horizontal confusion or obfuscation to the defense. A little bit similar to this last play that I showed you by Zacchaeus, where he lines up to the field as a running back and then post-snap goes into the boundary. Is a very diverse, very well-coordinated offense. I think they've had 2 games this year where turnovers were an issue. 5 against the Eagles in Week 16, a game they came back to win, by the way. Jayden Daniels also threw 5 touchdowns in that game and ran for 81 yards in the upset win. They also turned the ball over 3 times in a mid-season loss to the Cowboys, 34-26. But that was their last loss up to now. 6-game win streak, 5 in a row by less than a touchdown, however. But that includes, road wins over the Saints, the Cowboys in Week 18, when I think they sat a lot of guys, and then last week down in Tampa Bay. The run game, in my opinion, is the most critical part for both teams, really, If the Lions can shut the run game down like Baltimore did earlier in the season and take advantage of the lack of coverage talent on Washington's side. So what I mean is, and look, that's flipped dramatically for some reason. Let's put it that way. Since their loss to the Ravens, Washington's only allowing 175 passing yards per game. But I watched that game, and leading up to it, I even said in my previews, I didn't think they had tremendous coverage talent. Lamar Jackson went 20 of 26. That included 14 of 16 passing to his wide receivers. Since then, something's happened. Again, only allowing 100. I did the math, and if I did it wrong, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Only allowing 175 passing yards per game since that time. Now, look, they've acquired Marshawn Lattimore, but that is not the reason why. First of all, he's missed significant time. I think he's only played 11 or 12 quarters of football in a Commander's uniform, and he had a lot of trouble with Mike Evans last week. Has not performed to his standard at all. I don't think that's been the main factor. Bobby Wagner, Frankie Lavu, two badass inside linebackers. Lavu is one of my favorite players, versatile. He's got 8 sacks this year, finally named All-Pro, which is really cool to see. He's a very smart and multiple player. I have a feeling the Lions are going to be able to score points against this defense by presenting a balanced offense. Jared Goff has just executed at an incredibly high level, high pressure situations. They can get things done. We know that. I speculate that a lot of the determining factor for this is how well the Lions defense can play against an extremely athletic quarterback. Dan Campbell addressed that in a really cool way, I thought, earlier in the week. Someone mentioned, how are you going to deal with an athletic quarterback? And I think his comment was, or why do you have trouble with it? Do you want to speak on it? I don't remember the exact phrasing of the question, but I loved his response. It was, who doesn't? And he's exactly right. Who doesn't have difficulty with an athletic quarterback who can throw, who can make great decisions, who's extremely smart and poised, and just seems to be ready for every situation. I think if the Lions defense is able to hold down the run game, shut it down, essentially, the running backs, and limit the running back contribution in the pass game, they make Washington a dual threat in this way. Daniels has got to beat him throwing the ball, number one, and then scrambling a lot on his own. Not that he can't do that, but Detroit's got tremendous effort, tremendous hustle, and great pursuit. I think it's going to be a really good game, in my opinion. I can't wait to get more previews out for you guys that involve more film. If you didn't enjoy this one because it was mostly commentary, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I understand people may have complaints. I did present film. It was from earlier in the season. I admitted that up front. So if you want to be critical of that, that's fine too. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this preview, mostly commentary with some film study, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. I will have some actual focused, targeted film study stuff using later film of their offense out Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday night. Appreciate you guys' time.